I just built the ultimate lead generation system for real estate using ChatGPT-5, and this thing prints. Real estate deals can be worth tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, or even millions of dollars for your business or your AI agency clients, but it can be incredibly difficult and time consuming to track down leads. That's why automations like these are some of the best selling, highest profit systems in the world and have helped me scale my AI agency to over $10,000 a month and sell my automations to thousands of customers. By the end of today's video, you'll know how to build a complete lead generation system for real estate that not only finds leads in your area, but also drafts personalized messages to each one. This takes all of the time and effort out of cold outreach and finding buyers. If you want to download the automation from today, I'll leave a link in the description where you can access it along with 40 other templates and my AI agency growth system. And so now if we come over to our Google Sheet, not only do we have a list of leads of all the real estate investors in our area, but we also have the personalized messages that the system created that we can now just copy and paste into an email. Like, hi Harriet, really enjoyed coming across the Gray Area LLC and your investor focus. I run Ultra Cool Realty, a top producing shop helping investors source and exit deals. So if you send off 95 emails, you might only hear back from one of them, but that's all it takes to close a deal worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. We're going to be using my favorite automation platform for the build today, which is N8N. But before we get into the system, I just want to go over really high level how the system works so you understand it before we actually start. So I basically approached the project with the mindset of handing this off to the community or to a client. And so the first thing that happens is the user is going to just input a search term for the lead and the location. So something like real estate investor, San Francisco. The next thing that happens is that we're just going to create a copy of our database template, which is a Google Sheet. And so the template just looks like this. This is all the information from our lead that's coming in, the first name, the last name, the headline, the company they work for, their job title, the company website, and all of the research we perform along with the personalized message. And then we're going to scrape Apollo, which is basically just a database of a ton of leads using a service called Apify. And I'm going to walk you through exactly how to do this. The next thing that happens is that we want to enrich these leads. We want to do a little research on them as a person and also for the company that they work for. With all of the data that we now have, we're going to draft personalized email messages for every single one of our leads. Next, we're just going to store everything back in the database or Google Sheets. And then last, we're going to send an email to ourselves with all the results in a CSV form and a link to the Google Sheet file. So here, this is the automation workflow, and I'm just going to run it through once so that I can walk you through it. So I'm just going to go ahead and put in our search term like real estate investor, and then the location, San Francisco, city and state, California. And let's go ahead and send that off, and the system is going to go ahead and get to work for us. So basically what's happening here is just for your client, you'd basically put in any information about the agent here. We're then going to copy our template file. We're going to then create a URL for Apollo. We're going to scrape all of our leads, add that to our database. We're going to come down here. We're going to create personalized research for them, get info about their company, do some more research, create a personalized message, and then basically update the database at the end and send everything over to us in a nice email. So let me go through each one of these nodes one by one. So basically this just starts off with a form trigger, and you saw that basically just gives you a way to input information into the system. And so this is your search term and the location. From there, I just created a set node. And so if you're building this for clients, you can just kind of package this up and implement this in their business. And then they can go ahead, or you can go ahead and update this information. And this is just really like basic information, like about, you as like a real estate agent, or again, one of your clients. So like their first name, John, last name, based out, like the name of their company. I just put Ultra Cool Realty. And then I just did this like little about section, because when you're creating personalized like cold outreach messages, it's like nice to include some information about yourself. So this just says like John has consistently ranked among the top producing agents in his market, closing multi-million-dollar transactions year after year. His track record includes record-breaking sales and repeat business from a loyal client base built on trust and results. Obviously, I just used GPT-5 to write this, but again, this is just like mock data. You would customize this for yourself. And the last thing, this is the email. This is basically just the email that all of the leads are going to be sent to. And so you can customize this and make this for yourself or a team member or someone else. And so I figured you'd probably be running this lead search on more than one occasion. And so the next thing that's going to happen is we're just copying a template. So we're just using Google Drive here, and we're just using the operation copy. And then I just gave it like, this looks like a complicated file name. And basically all it's doing here is it's just kind of piping in our search terms. And I'll just go ahead and show you how I made this real quick. Basically, you can see here, we just have like all the information coming in from our form, which basically we have here like real estate investor, San Francisco, California. So all I'm doing here is I'm literally just dragging in this, and you can see here we have real estate investor on the side here. I'm just like, putting a dash in between it. We're just saying the location, city, San Francisco, California. And then the last thing I'm doing is I'm just putting in parentheses the date so that when you go kind of like look in your Google Drive or at all your Google Sheets, you like know when this came from. And I'll just show you how to do this really quick. Just putting this in parentheses, and then I'm just doing a double bracket and the money sign, and I'm doing now. And this basically is just like the date and time. And I can't even remember the name of this format, but it's confusing to look at. And I'm just going to click the dot and type in format. And you can see we just add this parentheses, quote, and then this format is YY, two more YY dash double capital M dash DD. And you can see here now that we've just taken that crazy format and just put year, month, date. So super easy there. Cool. So we have this all set, and now we've created a copy of the file. And so basically we're actually adding our leads to the new file that we just created with this name stored in our Google Drive. And for the ID here, I'm just using the ID of our actual lead template. And I know I'm going to need to scoot this down so y'all can see it. Basically, you can just find the file ID or the sheets ID kind of here between these two slashes. From there, we're generating a URL search term for a service called Apollo. And Apollo is basically just a big database of like information about people. You could think of Apollo in the way like you would use LinkedIn Search Navigator. Like there's a specific format that it likes its URLs in. So basically this is kind of the format that it likes it in. And we basically come down here and you can see this looks. We have like the percentages and the keywords and things like that. And you don't really need to understand how this works if you're going to get access to the template. But basically all you need to know is that we're taking our target audience, who is real estate investors in San Francisco, California, and we're turning it into a format that Apollo can understand. And if you look at the output here, we're basically getting this Apollo search. And that's apollo.io. And then we're doing organization, San Francisco, California. And the keywords here are real estate investor. And so it's just kind of converting it into this format that Apollo likes. And I'm just doing this with a ChatGPT node using GPT-5, using the basic LLM chain. And I like using the basic LLM chain. And let me just show you what that is. I can come in here and I can type basic LLM. And I like this because this allows me to hand off files to you or send this to my clients. And you can basically choose whatever model you want to work with. This is basically just like, talking to anything like ChatGPT or Claude or whatever. But basically you have the option to swap this out. And so you can see here, we just have this, but instead of calling ChatGPT directly, I can swap out the model here for like something different. Like if I wanted to use Claude, I can just swap this out for Claude. Or if you use OpenRouter, you can use OpenRouter and select your models in there. But so now what we're doing is we're taking this URL and we're just putting this into the Apollo scraper on Apify. And so this is a website called Apify. And if you're into AI automation, you should get really familiar with this because this basically has scrapers for everything. It has scrapers for YouTube, it has scrapers for Instagram, it has scrapers for TikTok and leads and Google Maps and pretty much everything, which is really, really cool. And so you can just come in here and you can search for the actor that you want. I can just search for Apollo, and I'm just using this first one here, scrape up to 50K leads. And let me tell you how this works. I will say that this particular actor, you actually do need to be on the paid plan of Apify. It costs $49 a month, and I know that may feel expensive, but if you close a single deal from the leads this scraper generates, this pays for the next decade of use of Apollo. So it's kind of like you want to take the risk early in order to profit on the back end. And so you can see here that this is the search term URL. So this should look familiar to like what we just generated. And the really important thing here is that we need this JSON file. So you would go ahead and you would just copy this when you're setting up your scraper. And if you come back in here, we can open up our HTTP module. And if you've never used the HTTP module, you come over here and go to HTTP requests, and you can kind of make these API calls. And again, if you're getting into AI and automation, getting comfortable making API calls and reading documentation, I know it might sound boring, but it's going to be one of the most impactful things to your business because your clients are going to want you to be able to do something, and you're going to need to know how to figure out how to do it. So what we're doing, we're just making a post request to Apify. And here we're using the actor's name or the actor's ID, which is basically coming from the top up here. I gotta scoot this down. So in Apify, you can see we're calling this actor right here. This is the ID for the actor, and we're just copying this and we're putting it back into this URL. Both Apify and N8N have really great documentation. So if you want to know how to use the HTTP request node, just go ahead and open this up in here. And then likewise, you can do the same on Apify. Just search Apify API documentation and you'll have a whole list of things that you can do. And so remember we copied that JSON. We're just pasting that JSON in here. And instead of the default URL that comes inside this one here, we're actually just piping in the URL that we just generated. So what's really cool is that this is dynamic every time. So anytime we want to perform a new search, maybe we don't want real estate investors in San Francisco. Maybe we're looking for real estate agents, in New York, and you would just go ahead and change the search terms and you're going to get a brand new scrape coming out of Apify. Then from there, we're just adding the rows to our Google Sheet. And so if I just come into Google Drive and I open up Google Sheets, you can see we have real estate investors, San Francisco, California. And so basically, as soon as that scraper runs, we have this entire list of leads: first name, last name, headline, company, job title, website. email address, et cetera, like their LinkedIn profiles. So we already have 95 people that we could reach out to see if they're interested in buying a property. And what's really cool is like if you open this up, you can see like real estate investor at Airbnb, like property mentor, like real estate investor, interior design investor, estate investor. And so again, you could go through and you can clean this up if you want. But again, this did a pretty great job of finding what we're looking for. And all we're doing here is I'm actually just piping in the data from the Apify scraper. So over here on the left is everything that comes in from Apify, like the name of the person, their LinkedIn URL, the title, like some photos, like information about their employment, like all this stuff, right? We have all this information. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm just going to grab this and map this to the right field. So putting the first name in the first name slot, putting the last name in the last name slot, headline, company, et cetera, you get the idea. And so at the end, we just have this really kind of nice, clean data to look at, and we don't have anything more than we need. So from there, this is just kind of like a little hacky thing. What's basically happening is after we append all the rows to the Google Sheet, you can see here, we're actually coming out with 94 items, which is way more than we need because this is basically going to execute the rest of the flow 94 times, which is way too many times. So I'm literally just putting in like this limit node and setting the limit to 1 so that we only go through the rest of the flow once because that's all we need. And so the next thing we do is now that we've stored all of the leads in the database, we're just going to grab all of them so that we can create personalized messages for them. So you can see here, we've actually grabbed 94 items. And if we go into the JSON view, we can scroll down and this is just pulling in all of the information that we just stored in our database. And so the way I think of automation, like in a nutshell, is there are 3 main pieces: the input, the processing, and the output. And you kind of need to understand the ends first before you can work out the middle. So in our case, we have the input. And for us, the input is first name, last name, headline, the company, the website, et cetera, right? So it's like, okay, we have all this. Like, what do we want to do with it? Well, we know our goals. Our goal is to create like a personalized message for this person that we can use to reach out to them. So that's great. We understand what we have and what we want. And now we have to build a system that completes the processing in the middle to transform part A into part C. So let's think about how we would approach this. We're going to basically research the person. We're going to figure out what company they work for. We're going to research the company, and then we're going to draft a personalized message based off of that research. One thing to note is after we pulled in all 94 items here, I also set another limit node just for the interest of this. I just set this to 3. So we're only personalizing 3 messages right now, but you could set this up to 100 or 1,000 or remove it completely if you want to just go through the list and personalize for everyone. In the interest of time, I just kept this low. The next thing I'm doing is I'm just adding a loop node. So basically we're going to go through every lead one at a time to create the personalized message for them. I just found it a lot easier to break it up this way. And so from here, we're now using GPT-4o search preview to actually research the person. So I'm just saying, research everything you can about this person. We're putting the first name, the last name, the headline from the company, their job title, and then at what company they work for. And then it just says return any particularly interesting facts or accomplishments this person has achieved. So you can see here that this is like what the output is, right? Research everything you can about Harriet Watt, real estate investor at the Gray Area LLC, real estate investor at Gray Area, just in case there's like any misunderstanding here. So then from there, I'm just using a code node to remove all of this crazy HTML formatting from our results so that we just have like really nice, clean data to look at. I know the code node can seem really scary, but I use just ChatGPT to do this all the time. I'll just show you, like, I need an N8N JavaScript code to remove the HTML from a JSON result. So basically I'll just put in something like this and it's just going to write code for me that I can then kind of bring over. Cool. And so you can see here with the new GPT-5, which is really cool, you can see this actually thought for 8 seconds and then it just created this nice function node for us to basically like, remove any commas or quotes or preserve any like line breaks and things like that. And then basically you just come in here and paste this in and you get a nice clean output. The next thing we're doing is company research. So we're using search preview again, and this is really basic. We're just asking it to create a succinct summary about this company, include 3 bullet points about anything particularly interesting or notable they've accomplished. Then I'm literally just piping in the information from the code node over here so that we can basically research that company. And here's all the information here. And so it's just going to go ahead and it's going to research that for us. And so you can see here that this just did some research for us. The Prado Group is a privately held real estate investment and development company based in San Francisco, focusing on urban, residential, retail, office, and mixed-use properties. So cool, that's really great. And then all we're doing at the end is we're just creating that personalized message. And you can see here we're already using GPT-5 inside of N8N, which is just awesome. So basically there are 2 prompts that we usually use, a system prompt down here and a user prompt up here. And you can think of this like using custom GPTs or Claude projects or something like this. And this is the system prompt, which is basically like how you want the system to behave. And then the user prompt is basically like the task you want it to perform. This is essentially like typing in your chat box in ChatGPT. And so this is where the magic kind of happens, where it sort of like brings everything together. And so you are an expert in cold email outreach. You'll be given a prospect's first name, their job title and company, research about them and their company, plus information about the sender's business, which is you or your client, right? Like the realtor. Your task is to generate personalized cold emails using this information. And then we tell it what information it's going to receive. And then we have some information about your agent's business. So the first name, the last name, the business name, and about their business. And we're just grabbing this, remember, from all the way back in the beginning when we actually set this information about the business. And so this is cool because these are already dynamically linked. So if you wanted to change this out like per client or something like that, all you would have to do is update the information in the beginning and it's automatically going to update here. And then I just gave it this email template to use and you can go ahead and change this or customize this however you want. And basically just says, hi, first name, really enjoyed, and then just like a specific reference to their recent project or company milestone or something like relevant from the research that the system performed. And then it's about you or the agent. I run your company name, a brief description of what the business does, and then like some sort of like relevant accomplishment that just happened. And then we want some sort of like bridge statement, which is basically just like, why are you reaching out to this person, right? Like you should let them know like what you're after. And then it just says, I'm confident enough in our work that, and then some sort of like guarantee that like, I'll do this thing for free because I'm confident that we're going to get paid or something like that. You're basically trying to create an offer that they can't possibly say no to. And so here's a little bit more information of how to customize the email, like analyze the research, extract key business details, match services to prospect needs, create relevant bridge statement, generate appropriate risk reversal, and then complete the template with all personalized elements. And then a little bit more information on how to personalize this. And then really in the user prompt, we're just putting in all of the information that we found. The first name of the lead, their last name, the job title, the company name, the personal research, the company research. And then we're just telling it to use a casual Spartan tone, right? Like you're talking to a friend. Never output intros or outros because we don't want this thing to say like, hey, like here's the message for you. You must only output the personalized message. And so here you can see the output of this message. Hi, Harriet. Really enjoyed coming across the Gray Area LLC and your investor focus. I run Ultra Cool Realty, a top producing shop helping investors source and exit deals, et cetera, et cetera. And then from there, we're just storing all of the personalized messages and information inside of our database. We're coming up here and we're just downloading that file. So basically we're using Google Drive to download this into this binary format, which is basically what you need to actually attach something to an email. And I'm getting the file ID for this file all the way back in the beginning from when we actually created a copy of that template. So I'm just dragging this in here. So anytime we create a new sheet of leads, this basically is going to update in the new email. The other thing that's important to add is this Google file conversion. Otherwise, you're going to download the Google Sheet in some weird format. So basically, you just want this to set this here for the Google Sheet to download this as a CSV. And then I'm just using the file name again from the beginning. So I'm using Real Estate Investor San Francisco, California, and then the date. .csv. And you want to make sure you add .csv to the end here. Again, otherwise, whatever system that you're on actually isn't going to recognize that this is a CSV file, and it's not going to know how to open it on your system. And then we're just sending a message, just sending it to the email from the about section all the way in the beginning. So again, you can update this for your business, a team member, a client, whoever, and we're just personalizing the message. And it just says your leads are ready. And then it's just the search terms, real estate investor in San Francisco. And I didn't include the date here because your email will automatically be dated. And the last thing is the message. Your new leads are ready. You can view them. And then I'm just using this HTML format to insert the Google Sheet with the proper ID. And this is coming from the copy file. And then download the attached CSV and you're good to go, the team. And so if I come into my email over here, I have a new email ready to go. It just says your new leads are ready. You can view them here with a hyperlink to the Google Sheet or download the attached CSV and you're good to go. And so we can either just download the CSV or we can come in here and open up the Google Sheet. And so now if we come over to our Google Sheet, not only do we have a list of leads of all the real estate investors in our area, but we also have the personalized messages that the system created that we can now just copy and paste into an email. Like, hi, Harriet, really enjoyed coming across the Gray Area LLC and your investor focus. I run Ultra Cool Realty, a top producing shop helping investors source and exit deals. So if you send off 95 emails, you might only hear back from one of them, but that's all it takes to close a deal worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. If you thought this video was cool, please make sure to subscribe to the channel. And if you want to see how I turned a system like this into a micro SaaS application using Lovable, you're going to love this video right here. I'll see you over there.